It was unknown why the luxury car sprouted flames. For Don Felipe, this was not important. Having his baby safe and sound was all he wished for. But how did the fire start? What was a wealthy family doing in such a dangerous neighborhood? Come join us for a closer look at this story. The Montanez family was a very well-known family among all the city's people because of the charitable heart of each family member. The story goes that before being so rich, grandfather Montanez rented a room in his house for people who came to his very touristic city. In this way, he managed to have money and pay for their studies since he was orphaned parents. He obtained this house by inheritance from his beloved grandmother who raised him. After noticing that the room he was renting was very well received, he decided to leave the room where he slept and slept inside a tent in a courtyard. That's how he saved and managed to set up a motel in his beloved city. He demolished some walls and built more rooms. He finished his career, and with much success, he managed to obtain 5-star hotels full of glamour all over the city and its surroundings. The neighborhood where his first hotel was located was full of backpackers, and it was not so safe. He received instructions from other people to sell the hotel because that old building on such an ugly street took away from the prestige of his hotel chain. But Don Mario never paid attention to this. He simply decided to change the hotel's name. And instead of charging for a room, he donated to the students so they could have a roof over their heads while they finished their studies. His son Felipe was in charge of that building, as he was trained by his father to be merciful and kind-hearted to those in need. "This is my most precious legacy," said his dear father to Don Felipe, who completely forgot about that hotel that his father had given him because of the birth of his beloved daughter, Samantha. Years later, something happened that changed everything. Don Felipe received an urgent call, and he was notified that the hotel he was given to guard was being razed to the ground in flames. This greatly mortified his heart because he did not want his father to know about it due to his great appreciation and affection for that property. Don Felipe was with his daughter at that moment. Samantha was already 12 years old, and she was terrified, looking closely at that devastating fire. While her father, in desperation, took his phone and waited for the arrival of the slow firefighters who never showed up, the worst thing was that the neighborhood was short of water because there was a broken pipe, and this pipe supplied the whole area. At that moment, the car in which his youngest daughter was began to burst into flames. Don Felipe ran towards her, but when he tried to open one of the doors, it started to catch fire and burned his hands, so he fainted. People were still unaware of this, and Samantha was screaming for help. But suddenly, a boy, approximately 12 years old, saw this and, taking a bucket full of water, ran to the car door and threw the bucket. This caused the fire to retreat from the door, so it opened, and Samantha was able to get out, but the car was left in flames. Samantha turned around to thank her savior, but the boy began to run through the streets going in no direction. Don Felipe woke up with the help of the paramedics who bandaged his hand, but he cared nothing more than that his beloved daughter was safe. When he saw her, he asked her how she got out, and she replied that an angel saved her. This story reached the ears of Don Juan and the entire Montanez family. They were about to believe that an angel saved that girl, but everyone was completely surprised when they asked for a description of the angel. The girl said the angel was filthy, had no shoes or shirt, and had a face full of mud. No one could understand why an angel would have those characteristics, but they began the search for that child savior. The news reached the ears of that millionaire family. That little boy was not an angel. He was a car wash worker and worked every day, but one day he never came to work. That was the day the events happened. Years later, after a tireless search, Samantha entered college and parked her luxury car in a shopping mall parking lot to buy a few things. Since the water was scarce, he took a single bucket of water used to wash the cars and threw it at the door. After that, he disappeared forever. Suddenly, she saw a tall and handsome young man with a dirty face, shirtless and barefoot. This made her think of the boy who had saved her one day. She approached him without asking who he was and invited him to lunch. That young man told her he could not because he had to work, but she told him that she would take him to wash all the cars in her house, and there were many, so he accepted. Samantha gladly took him to her mansion, and while she was cleaning, her mother was stunned how she had taken a street man with such an appearance, but Samantha said absolutely nothing. Her suspicions were made known when the whole family sat down to lunch. Everyone was surprised by the young man, but Samantha stood up and said, I would never forget that look, let alone those eyes. You're the one who saved me from the burning car, aren't you?" That boy's name was Fernando, and when he heard what Samantha said, he opened his eyes wide and said, "Hey, are you the girl I saved that day?" Nobody could believe what was happening. The boy said that he ran because, being the only bucket of water, the people at the car wash would stop working due to water shortage, and he was afraid they would hurt him for wasting it. So that's why he ran and never came to work again. He also said he was an orphan and worked cleaning cars to pay for his career. This story made Don Felipe and Don Juan cry. Still, Don Juan stood up and said that it reminded him of when he was young. That is why he told him that he would pay for all his studies and that he would give him lodging, not in the hotel on Backpacker Street, no, but in one of the luxurious ones he had, and that in his free time, he would be working in that hotel as a receptionist. Fernando could not believe it. Years later, after much effort, Fernando graduated as an administrator. A year later, Samantha had graduated as an accountant. He was close to the Montanez family. His habits were polished, and being already professional, they told Samantha's family that they were secretly engaged 4 years ago and were going to get married. The Montanez family was pleased with that news. They simply loved that boy. On her wedding day, Samantha exclaimed, "I'm marrying not only my guardian angel, but also my savior." Friends, we have reached the end of this story. Fernando found a family when he never thought he would have a family. He's the manager of the Backpacker Street Hotel and has 2 children with the beautiful Samantha. What did you think of this story? Hey, if you like this story, don't forget to share it, like it, comment, and activate the notification bell to receive more content like this every week.